Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you're tuning in from. Super excited to have another travel webinars series today. We have a super special guest, Chris Bradford. I'm going to give everyone a second to just pull in if you are joining us live, and then we'll get into it here in a minute. Chris, where are you joining us from?
Joining you from my office in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, USA.
Oh, wonderful. How's the weather over there? Is it spring yet?
It's spring and it's beautiful now. And
Oh, that's awesome.
we've had several. We've had the coldest winter since in the time that I've lived here, but it's very much spring outside right now, which is wonderful.
Good. That's the beauty of the distinct climates. Here in Costa Rica, where I'm tuning in from, we've got the wet and rainy season, but sometimes it's hard to know what time of the year it is here. I have to like really remind myself, like it's March and 'cause it's just feels like it's warm all year round. I miss the distinct climates. It's nice to have that kind of reset. Mhm. Well, wonderful, everyone. I'm super excited. Thank you for everyone for joining us for another inspiring conversation that is about travel and that goes beyond sightseeing. In this webinar, really hoping to discuss with Chris Bradford, our alumni traveler and actual board member, who can share his reflections from a recent journey to Cuba, where he traveled with his family to celebrate this special occasion. So, through cultural exchange, local connection, and meaningful experiences with Cuban communities, this trip for Chris became far more than a vacation. And so, Chris will share with us some of the highlights from his journey and reflect on how immersive community-based travel can deepen our understanding of the world, strengthen our family bonds, and create lasting memories and connections to the places that we visit and the people that we meet. So I'm super excited to introduce you, Chris. We're thrilled to welcome you. Chris is a longtime Discover Core traveler and has journeyed again with us to Cuba, not once, but twice, bringing a depth of experience and perspective. And beyond, again, being an alumni traveler, you are a founder of Terra Education, our parent company that you serve as a valued board member, helping guide our mission and vision, which is incredibly important for us. So, Chris, I would love to give everyone a little bit more about yourself and your journey with Discover Core, your work with Terra Education, and what that has meant for you over the past few years.
Sounds great, Lynn. It's an honor to be with you on one of these webinars, and just so exciting for me as an opportunity to reflect on a trip and trips that have changed my life. Travel, I would say, has really shaped my understanding of the world, but more importantly, it shaped my understanding of myself. I grew up in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and one of the great transformational moments of my life was getting selected for an exchange program in Japan at the start of high school. Um, uh, it took me far outside my comfort zone, dispelled so many ideas I had in my head about the world. Um, and it made the world so much bigger and made me so much more curious about my role in it as I lived and learned alongside my host brother, Yoshihiro. And that experience has always stuck with me. And I've always marveled at sort of the way in which that experience shaped a lot of the choices I made that came afterwards. And it caused me in my mid-20s to start to imagine the first summer programs that became Global Leadership Adventures, which were summer programs for high school students, imagining young people like me those years earlier who could have their leadership journey shaped by transformational experience and immersion in
Mhm.
culture. And so those global leadership adventures trips have grown into just a wonderful story with thousands of young people having transformational experiences and led to asking the same question about families, which of course um, met our own journey of building our own families, right? To say, well, what would it look like to have a GLA type experience, but to share it with others who you love, or with others, who are not just your peers as teens, but who are your peers as adults and are trying to shape their own understanding of the world and their own understanding of themselves. And um, that's what Discover Core has done for me. And to be honest, I mean, my last my trip to Cuba with Genevieve, with our family, um, it was every bit as magical
Hmm.
for us from ages 5 to 75 as it was in many ways for me to go to Japan when I was 14.
Yeah, it's incredible to see how that thread of connection of travel from young to even now, like it still has the same impact on us. And I think that's really beautiful. I've seen it even in my travels as well with Discover Core and going with groups, that it doesn't really matter what age you're kind of entering this kind of travel for the first time, that it can still have such a deep impact in you and leave a little seed that can change your perspective in the future. And so I, I think that's what we value at Discover Core, right? Is helping travelers move from simply observing a culture to really participating in it. And so from your perspective, Chris, what was the difference for you in observing a culture that's, that you're not necessarily from it, but engaging in it through meaningful interactions during the trip?
Oh wow. I mean, so there's so much I could say here. I think my headline first would be that participation and partnership with locals and local communities creates just a richness and depth to an experience
Hmm.
that's truly transformational, right? Uh, to think about Cuba, right? It's easy from afar to study the history, to admire the resilience of the Cuban people, to enjoy the music, to enjoy a cigar, uh, to enjoy a Hemingway daiquiri. Um, and it would be easy actually to do those things in Cuba and to have a very fun experience, but I think a less transformational one
Hmm.
than you can have if you immerse yourself in the culture. And this is where, Darren Gonzalez, who was our guide, he was a Discover Corps guide in Cuba. His passion for connections and understanding of the island put us in partnership with locals and in conversation with locals in ways that we never would have been if we imagined ourselves as simple tourists. And and it totally transformed our understanding of the island. So for perspective, well, as you know, we lived a number of years of our life in Africa. We have a number of friends who are West African, and some of those friends were with us in Cuba. One afternoon, we climbed up 4 flights of stairs. We were on a rooftop with an award-winning group of rumba musicians. Now,
Hmm.
it'd be one thing to go and just attend a concert of these great rumba musicians, but instead we sort of showed up to a practice session that they were having. Ended up having a whole conversation about the history of rumba music, learning rumba steps, dancing. As part of that, there were these aha moments in which he recognized these unexpected connections between rumba, which is like a definitively Cuban form of musical expression, and elements of Nigerian culture.
Right.
We had a friend, Afi, she's Efik, right? She's from the Efik tribe. They were using words from her Nigerian experience, and there are these elements of West African tradition that have passed down, over the oceans, through the slave ships, over time in Cuba, and have manifested themselves in this uniquely Cuban form of music that's deeply connected, actually, to the heritage of others who we were on our trip with. And this is the kind of thing that you can only learn through that
Right.
participation, conversation, and partnership. And
Mhm.
and we think about that. And we think about that, talk about magical moments like that all of the time.
So magical. Wow. Yeah, so magical and so amazing to see that resistance of y- just honoring tradition, honoring that history that you can still see in today, and that with having such a diverse group of friends and family too, that you were able to kind of like see and reflect that. So why did you choose Cuba in the first place, for Genevieve and to celebrate this
So
for
we
her?
celebrate Genevieve's milestone birthday in Cuba on a Discover Core trip. Uh, we did this in late 2024. And I should start by noting it's March 2026. Cuba is in a really difficult place right now. And we've actually been thinking about Cuba quite a lot in
Hmm.
our house and about the friends that we met there. It was also in a difficult moment in late 2024. It's dependent on oil from outside. We actually, and there were power outages that we were concerned about before we arrived. In fact, like our trip was very, very smooth. It was very well planned um, by the team at Discover Corps. And we decided to go forward because we had been drawn to the fact that first, it's so close to the United States and yet so very different, right?
Right.
But there are so many elements of Cuban life that if you grow up in America, you're connected to or aware of, right? Or you're connected to or aware of the American experience of them, cuisine, music, dance, right? Second, we have family connections to the Caribbean, and
Mm.
Cuba has long been a fascinating place to other Caribbean people, Caribbean communities, right? There is a mystique and lore. Havana and Cuba have been, you know, one of the most important places in the Americas for 500 years.
Mm.
And and so we thought that it would be a really special place for us to go and discover and learn together. And we're doing this at a time when Cuba and Havana are still very uniquely Cuban,
Right.
right? And frankly, doing this at a time and with a partner that we trust is going to make sure that we are safe and healthy and well fed, but actually at a time in which by being present in Cuba, by investing in Cubans and local Cuban entrepreneurs, like we're having a really meaningful impact on the society that we're visiting. And we felt a meaningful positive impact. We really felt that every day in our interactions with
The
folks
Cubans.
in Cuba. So
Hmm.
we wanted to live that history, live that culture, and we wanted to be a force for good in the places where we were going and a force for connection. And um, it met all of those. It met all of those aspirations.
Yeah, I my first day on the job for Discover Car, I don't know if you know this, Chris, was in Cuba. So when
Oh,
I got
was it?
hired, yeah, I'm going on 4 years now with DC, and I remember right when they called me and told me I got the job, they're like, "Can you come to Cuba?" And it was amazing to meet everyone there and the team, and we really do have such an awesome group of people out there. I tell my travelers all the time on the phone. Uh, yeah, that I mean, the reality is it's a really tough destination to work in at the moment. However, one of the biggest contributions you can do is go visit and meet the people and connect and, put your resources into a place that I think it can go really far and have a really big impact.
So I'll pick up on that. I mean, the when you go to Cuba with Discover Corps, you go on a special visa. I traveled to Cuba super easy. In terms like there are American Airlines flights that go in and out, from Miami multiple times a day. But you have to get a special visa, and the visa is called Support for the Cuban People.
Mhm.
And it was explained to us that, what support for the Cuban people visas mean is that you're throughout your experience, you're investing in the local entrepreneurs and local families in Cuba.
Mhm.
So you stay in a Casa Particular, which is like a beautiful family-owned bed and breakfast. And it
Mhm.
was a wonderful place to stay in a historic district in Cuba. This family had put so much pride into maintaining this just beautiful building that we had the opportunity to stay in. And then you go to eat your meals in restaurants that are owned by local entrepreneurs, right? And what was fun about going to Cuba with someone like Dyron is that um, you actually build a connection to a number of the entrepreneurs that you're meeting. And
Totally.
so you end up having conversations with them, hearing their stories, like hearing their passion for the island, understanding why they've stayed when they could have left, and like what
Right.
keeps them in this place and building their society. And that for me was like a particularly meaningful element of the journey. It's
Yeah.
like before you go, you think, well, how are we going to do this? While you're there, you think, not only am I safe, but like everything that I'm doing, everything that I'm spending is actually going straight to the people who will be forming the foundation of whatever Cuban society is going to emerge
Yeah,
over
and look
over.
like in the future. Absolutely. No, and like you said, when you think of Cuba, you think of the music and the cigars and maybe the fun, but what often leaves you reflecting is those connections with the people. And I will think about the lady that hosted me. She was like over 70 years old, and just hearing her stories and her resilience and sharing. I brought a chocolate bar from Costa Rica and I shared it with her. And we sat and she ate the whole thing in front of me. And she was so excited, to just have something different that she hadn't had access to, and being able to have those rich discussions and history. It's really, really meaningful. So
Well,
what are,
the one,
oh
so
yeah,
sorry,
please.
I would
No,
add one thing
yeah.
about, when you're making these types of personal connections, the other thing that I think is really special about Cuba as a destination, and I think DC trips in general, is that you go to places that love children. And so in our case, we chose to do a Discover Corps trip with our nieces and nephews and our kids. And we were in a society that really values and loves children. And so their experience was also a particularly memorable one. It was the first time we'd ever done anything like this as a family going outside of the United States. But it was so thoughtfully organized in that the people who hosted us, the restaurants we ate at, they were all so excited to
Right.
not welcome some American tourists, but to welcome children into the fold, which was a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, the Cuban people really do have a way of feeling or making you feel so warm and so embraced in every way for all ages. And I think that's really special. I don't think that every place in the world is like that. And I think they have something there that they can be proud of their just like warmness and warm embrace. And I think there's a lot of fear around going to Cuba still. And I remind my travelers that there's nothing to fear when it comes to, that embrace from Cuban people. It really is something special. What are some of the other more memorable moments of your trip that you can share with us, or that experiences that maybe challenge your perspective, reshaped how you think about travel, culture, even family connection?
Um, well, so I should probably talk a little bit about art. We like art a lot. We want to experience local art. And we did this in a couple of ways um, that were just very, very powerful because we were spending time directly with artists. And um, in talking to artists about their art, you get a deeper window into the culture that you're visiting. And so we visited an artist in Kelvin Rodriguez.
Mhm.
He's brilliant. I mean, a stunning painter. We visited him at his home studio. We spent time with him. His art now hangs proudly in our house, which was an unexpected byproduct of the visit. But it's the stories behind the art, the different series, and the stories the series told. So there was a um, there was a series that he had that was about that was of houses in Miami inhabited
Mm,
by Cubans made with Cuban, and the pictures were made with Cuban artifacts. And it was just very, very interesting. It was like his take on the Cuban diaspora in South Florida. Um,
right.
and 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 he had different types of landscapes. And as he shared what he was thinking about, what he was doing, you get to peer into, like one person's like deep artistic perspective on their culture. But then one evening we went to a place that I think I know you've been to, the FAC, the Fábrica de
Hmm.
Arte Cubano. Maybe
Fabrica.
it's the coolest place I've ever been, probably
Pretty
like
cool.
way too cool for me. But it is what used to be a giant, I think, manufacturing facility,
Hmm.
and it is now a um, a celebration of the arts with probably 6 or 7 different gallery
Yep.
spaces,
Hmm.
2 or 3 different stages, and then a few bars inside, and a restaurant actually inside
Hmm.
the Arte Cubano. When you are there, you're aware that everyone around you is Cuban, right?
Yeah.
And this is not a place that was created to earn money from
For
outside.
tourists.
The place
Yeah.
that creates art for
Hmm.
Cubans in Cuba, and you have been invited into it. Um, and not only did we get to see some just amazing galleries with like really interesting art on display, but we went to a concert of a Cuban musician who I think everyone in our family, an extended family, still follows on social media because she absolutely uh, blew our minds, La Dame
You
Blanche.
killed it.
And if she ever goes on tour in the U.S., I will be the first to invite everyone I know to one of her concerts. But it was just this moment when we all felt so deeply immersed over several hours in Cuba with Cubans in an experience that we never could have found for
Right.
ourselves. Uh,
It has an energy. I went back 3 nights in a row when I was there because, like Chris said, there's many different galleries, many different stages, and every night there's different music. It really gives you a window into just how much diversity there is in Cuba in such a small place, how rich the art is. I also find it impressive that every couple of months they completely change it. So even if we went back today, it would be different than probably when we both went, Chris. And yeah, I think well, I know Anthony Bourdain, I'm pretty sure he said it was the best club he had ever been to, which I think that's again a good,
I mean, if Anthony Bourdain says so, then I
yeah,
feel much better about saying that myself because
right?
we all felt that way,
Yes,
having
exactly.
having been there. And it would be, on the top of my list of a place to go back to. It's
Oh,
just
absolutely. And so how do these kinds of experiences for you, Chris, create memories that go beyond just, a snapshot or a souvenir?
well, you know, I think that the trip reinforced something I knew, which is that travel's best when it's shared,
Mm.
and it's
Mhm.
best when it's um, shared with loved ones and shared with locals. And um, it's always tempting. I've had a really busy start to 2026. It's very tempting to want to plan a holiday where you just go sit on the beach,
Right.
right, and unplug. And to be fair, when we went to Cuba, we did spend a day where we sat on the beach. We ate a fresh lobster. Like it was a relaxing day. Um, but what we take from our time on the beach was dining on that beach with a trusted guide,
Right.
having conversations about the things that we had seen and the people we'd spoken to, um, and forming through those conversations a deeper understanding of the place, but also a lifelong connection to someone who I now consider a friend. Um, and that type of sharing, that sharing with loved ones, sharing with locals is really amazing.
It is amazing. And I get the attraction of the sitting on the beach and relaxing, but I don't think you have to sacrifice having that experience when you can also still engage with the local people. And it ends up being such a more enriching experience for one's soul that I think you keep coming back looking for. You don't want to just go to a place anymore and just see the landscapes. You remember the people and that's what you end up kind of talking about later. And I'm curious from your family or friends, what stories come out when you see people that you did that experience together, what sticks with some of your loved ones?
So it's interesting. My niece and nephew are middle school, high school age, and uh, each time I've seen them over the last year and a half, we end up talking about Cuba, um, because it was a really transformational thing for them. It happened, of course, at the same time in their lives that I actually had this transformational experience I talked about
Right.
at the start of the webinar, going to Japan. Um, and the things that they talk about. So, for example, they talk about the sound of
Mm.
waking up in the morning to the bell ringing as the woman moves through uh, the the street selling bread at the start of each day, and as different people walk out of their homes to buy the bread that they will use for their morning breakfast, and the idea of the sound. I mean, they would describe it as the sound of bread being sold in the streets, right? and like that ring in the morning as like a connection to a different way of life, like where fresh bread is a central part of the shared human experience that
Mhm.
happens every morning, right? They also talk about the experience of the cars, right? And it's one thing to think about, the classic cars of Havana, and it's pretty cool to
Right.
get cars from the 1950s and cruise the streets. I mean, it's sort of like, one of these things that you can only do in one place. It's an amazing place to do it. But the really amazing thing about experiencing those, talking about them, is that it's, yes, the car was cool, but each of the owners of that car is themselves an entrepreneur, right?
Mhm.
And the care and attention they have put into the upkeep of these vehicles for decades
Decades.
keep them shiny and new and fun to ride is this thing that like you carry with you long after the experience.
Right.
So if you experience that when you're 14, then you think, um, you know, how, like, I want to find something that I care about that much, or like, how do I look after the things that I care about in the same way that that man in Cuba looked after his car. And these sound like little things, but actually they're really transformational moments. This isn't a snapshot or souvenir; it's an experience. Like not just the smell, but the sound of bread being sold in the morning,
Mhm.
or not just the car, but the care
You care. Mhm.
that is put into it. Like those are things that I think have stayed with us long after the trip.
Yeah, it's definitely a symbol of sustainability for me as well that I saw that, when we think about sustainability, we often think of like nature or we think of, reforestation, but seeing the care that Cubans gave for cars, for antique items that just look brand new was such a reminder that we do have uh, an ability to preserve long, way longer than I think we see happen in the global north. And yeah, what an amazing culture of people that have been able to just preserve so much history as well, and even items that, you don't often sort of reflect on in our day to day, in North America. But, a wise man that I know once said that we're in the business of making memories. And we know that the most enduring ones come from connection, curiosity, and reflection. And do you have another example for us, Chris, where you felt all of these came together for you and the family?
Uh, sure. So there is a family that operates a taxi van.
Hmm.
Um, the family picked us up at the airport on the first day, and at different points they put us into their van and took us to different places. They took us to Ernest Hemingway's home, for example. Um, and so because you get to see them regularly, you make this connection with them, and they're very proud small business people. um, on an island that you don't naturally think of as being full of small business people, but actually is, right? I mean,
Hmm.
everyone in Cuba, you discover, has a side hustle. Cuba,
Totally.
planned economy with a vibrant market economy that happens underneath it. And um, and uh, there was a moment on the last day of the trip, you know, where where we were being dropped off at the airport. I was thanking our driver. I gave him a little gift, and over the course of the time, we learned about his family, we learned about different things. And he said, you know, no, I'm supposed to be thanking you. Um, and he gave us a little card that said happy birthday, which I was not expecting. Right, his birthday actually had already long passed. Um, and he said, and then he proceeded to say, you're coming here as hell, like as a family, uh, has also been an investment in my family. And it was a reflection for me, um, on, at some level, we think about travel as something we do for ourselves, right? But there's a way in which we travel and then engage in community that um, actually not just doesn't just make a memory for ourselves, but but actually, enables those that we interact with to make memories for themselves. And and it was just it's a small but like important reminder of why the work that you do, Lynn, like really
Mhm.
matters. Like there are these families who there are these families who share the values of Discover Core, who serve your business, who are so proud to serve Discover Core, um, and who, in serving Discover Core travelers through the years, have been able to create memories and moments for their own families, and are deeply aware and deeply grateful for that. And like you're in a sense that there's this great big world out there. We're all sharing it together in a way that I always found. I mean, it's just so inspiring.
Yeah, thank you for saying that, Chris. It sometimes when we're, working on the phones and we're on the computers and everything, we require these moments to sit and reflect on all of the families and all of the partnerships that we have all around the world that do translate into something very impactful for them that is life-changing. I had the privilege of going on a program this past December in Costa Rica on our cloud to cloud forest trip, and it was amazing. There's an entire forest that has been built by Discover Core travelers in our reforestation program in a small rural community, off just off the pathway of La Fortuna, and it it's just incredible to hear these stories of a bus driver of, it's like there's many people involved in creating these experiences for our travelers, and all of it matters and all of it builds into this network of, yeah, a more equitable form of travel that we love to advocate for here at Discover Core. And thank you, Chris, just for sharing such personal and intimate stories to give, our travelers here sitting on the call as well a deeper perspective on why they might want to, book a trip or experience this kind of travel. So in on that note, if
Well,
anyone's sitting at home kind of wondering if they should jump, would you have any advice for them?
I think what I'd say is I can't recommend it highly enough. Um, I recommend it to all my friends. We are already determining when our next family trip is going to be and where it's going to be,
Hmm.
um, which will probably be in 2027. And it it's it's always fun to be part of something bigger than yourself.
Mhm.
And Terra Education and Discover Core have always felt like that for me, but it feels like that to be a traveler program. Um, and you get all of the rest and all the relaxation and all of the quality family time that you would get with any great vacation, but with these layers of depth and connection layered in that are just astounding.
Wonderful. Well, if anyone on the call right now does have a question for Chris, or for me, this is your time to do so. So feel free to type into the chat and we will happily answer if there's anything that comes up for people. I am curious where you might have on your radar, Chris, for a 2027 trip. I'm sure that there's lots on the list for you and the family, but do you have a top three kind of destinations that you're exploring and why?
Well, if we go with the grandparents, we'll want to keep it into North America. So
Right.
we'll at Costa Rica. We're looking at Oaxaca, Mexico,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and also the new trip to Guatemala, which looks really
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah, the Antigua getaway trip is beautiful. I love Antigua. It's such a beautiful city with, again, so much history and culture to explore and uncover. Have you been to Guatemala before, Chris?
We have,
Okay.
but the extended family has not.
Yeah, nice.
And
Yeah.
and there's just I mean, there's lots to explore. We went not for long enough, so it's a place we'd be excited to go back to.
Well, well, I'll be more than thrilled to have you in Costa Rica and meet the family on the ground here. for those of you who, again, don't know that this is where I call home and have called Costa Rica home for about 8 years now. And it's definitely a special place that I look forward to hosting you and meeting the family for sure. Well, I'm super grateful for your time, Chris. I know you're a pretty busy guy, and we appreciate you giving such a beautiful testimony to our trips, but also to just travel in general. I think that's the idea of these webinars. So that's really the idea is that we can, talk about the impact and talk about the ways in which it can be beneficial for the communities that we work in, but also for ourselves. And I think it was just beautiful hearing your stories. And if there's anything that you want to add or end with or let our future travelers know, we'd love to give you the final word.
Um, Thank you for the amazing trip. Thanks for the opportunity to share the story. The thing I'll say, and I said a little bit earlier, was that Cuba, like many places, there are certain complexities with going to Discover Core, with some of the Discover Core locations. Um, I don't think we would have gone to Cuba for fear of power or medical or other questions had we not had Discover Core. We got great guidance. We stayed in excellent places. We were safe. We were well fed. We had clean water the whole time. We felt like we were part of the solution in a difficult time. And and what I was most impressed by uh, the professionalism and support leading up to it. And we had people coming in from different places. We had people with some different needs, and all of that was handled just so well by Claudia.
Yeah,
And
huge shout out. I was gonna say huge
I have
shout out to
no
Claudia.
doubt that that is the case with all of the trips around the world. And that's one of the reasons that I can't recommend Discover Core highly enough. And it's well worth it.
Thank you so much, Chris. And yeah, huge shout out to all of our team members that make this ship go and run smoothly for everyone involved, for the communities, but also for our travelers. And so happy that you had such a beautiful experience and that you were able to have these memories for the rest of your lives. And thank you, Chris, again for taking the time to speak with us and be on our travel webinar series. And I can't wait to see where I get to, I don't know, run into you next. If it's
I
Costa
look
Rica or somewhere else, I'm looking forward to it.
I look forward to it, Lynn.
All right.
Thank you for
Thank
having
you
me.
everyone for joining and hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their day and week. And we'll talk soon. All right. Bye, Chris. Thanks again.
Bye. Thank you.